Hey everybody, how you doing? Brad from Escape to Faith Ministries here. Thought I'd try something a little bit different with this one. Now, the background of this is that it was a bit of an informal discussion I was having with another contributor named DannyBoy. Basically, we were having a discussion theologically and philosophically about some of the comments left on the videos. And we thought that, even though it was late at night, we weren't as sharp as normal. Why not just record the discussion and see if it's worth putting up for content? So this is a portion of that discussion. It's not all of it. So I thought I'd put it out and see what you guys think of it. If it is something that you enjoy listening to, be sure to support it. Be sure to let me know through your support, through your views, and of course through your comments. Let me know what you think of this content if you'd like to see more of it. But in the meantime, here's the long-form discussion I was having with DannyBoy. How you going, everybody? Escape to Faith Ministries here. This is Brad. I'm here with DannyBoy, one of our other members of the team, and today we're going to be having a look at some of the comments from both our top 10 major heresies video and also from some other videos that have had some juicy comments. Thank you all for your engagement. It's been greatly appreciated so far. The reason that we haven't responded to every single comment and conversation throughout our comment section is just because it hasn't been conducive to a positive discussion. We don't want to be creating a new environment for people to be debating or to be badgering each other and to be beating each other over the heads with proof text. That's not what this ministry is for. This ministry is for the purpose of helping to support people by unpacking the indoctrination and the lies of history and teachings that came from Jehovah's Witnesses, from Mormons, from Latter-day Saints, and over time, hopefully, we can support more people from a broader audience of cults. So thank you for those who are willing to engage. There are obviously people that we would love to engage with more, but without divulging into proof texting and debates, it's a bit difficult. So in saying that, this gives us right now the great opportunity to come together and talk myself and DannyBoy around these comments, to have a bit of a table discussion about them and the philosophy and the theology around them and the history, and that way it's a bit more conducive to a bit of good content for you all as well. So how are you going today, DannyBoy?
I am good. Thank you for bringing me on.
No, thank you for coming, mate. So I'll just read a couple of comments, just thanking the team first. So what have we got here? Thanks for the reminder at the end. May we never use this information to shame or make fun of JWs. Great point, S.her. Let's be compassionate and show them love and truth and love. Yes, that is absolutely the case. That's what we're trying to do with this ministry. Help people to understand that it is a difficult thing to work through the cult teachings, and help people to do so, hopefully, without completely abandoning everything that they hold dear in their faith. May the Triune God bless you for your amazing work and insight. Thank you, user -MH2. Well done, brother, from Light Over Dark. Thank you, brother, for your support and your help in developing the channel. Gizmo from Pismo says, I have a problem with people self-identifying as Christians. If words have meaning, then a Christian should be defined by the scriptures and not by somebody's harebrained idea of what a Christian is. That may be too strict, though. This is an interesting point, Gizmo. I agree that self-identification as Christians in modern days has kind of muddied the waters a little bit, in that Christianity does mean something, and it was asserted to be something in the Nicene Creed and other councils. And in modern days, we do have a bit of a fluffy idea of what Christianity is, according to a real. Anyone can define it. It's whatever anyone says it is, and I think you can agree, DannyBoy, that as soon as something is just whatever we say it is, and it ceases to be anything. What's your input?
Yeah, I think he's making a really good point there. I mean, we've got, and people sort of do make fun of it. You see the memes, making the rounds and stuff. But you've got people saying like, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian, but I just dabble in, a little bit of this or that, but I still identify as a vegetarian or a vegan or whatever." And I mean, there's got to be some sort of flexibility, I think, with speaking to the spirit of what a person is doing or something. But now we've got people that are claiming to be Christians who don't even acknowledge that Jesus is the only way. So he's definitely got a point there, and these people might be the kind of people who still even uphold the Nicene Creed, but then they won't, in practice, they won't actually uphold that, or even, they'll deny massive sections of the Bible and other things. So, yeah, it's definitely something worth thinking about. It's definitely valid criticism as well, I think. We need to have a boundary around what is the definition of this thing. So that's absolutely true. I fully agree with that, actually, with what he's saying. If this is what he means, if he just means, if what he means is it needs to be by the scripture, then the only person who ever fit the criteria of being a Christian, and in a lot of ways this is very true anyway, is Jesus Christ, right? But if it's we're attempting to live our life by biblical standards, then what is the authority that dictates which interpretation is acceptable? And so I think the church has done a very good job of creating what that boundary should, in theory look like, or what are the foundational doctrines of Christianity. So it's not just open to anyone's interpretation and anyone's, idea. For all we know, if people are quoting things totally out of context, they could be upholding heinous doctrines, right? So yeah, I mean, virtually any interpretation. What does Jordan Peterson say? Not that I'm promoting Jordan Peterson, but he says, there's almost an infinite number of ways to interpret or to come at a text and to interpret it, and which interpretation is actually the valid one. So yeah, definitely. We need a boundary. It needs to mean something, and the scriptures being inspired, that's a good place to start. But what are we all going to agree, at least in theory, what does that actually look like?
Absolutely. And on that point too, I think if you look historically at Christianity, you have people that assert the church and its authority in being able to ascertain what interpretations are accurate or not. And then you have people who state that the interpretations of individuals such as Martin Luther or John Calvin or different individuals through time, they're the ones that have found a philosophical way to approach Christianity, and that is the way that they think is appropriate. I think we can all agree that the church is designed in such a way historically that you can't point back at a specific person and say this is the person that invented the Trinity. I know that many atheists and naysayers try to do so, and I'll mention that in a couple of the comments coming, but it is simply the case that the church itself asserted the Trinity. It's not that a individual invented it. It's not an interpretation of a person. It is an assertion of a united body of Christians. And as we mentioned earlier, it is okay to have a united body and that gets to say what they are. And no one would argue that against Islam or against any other religious group. It is interesting that continues to be something that people throw against Christianity.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. So the next comment from G. Norp Florbson 8665. Funny name you got there, mate. It's wonderful to see people speak out against such a dangerous cult and example of the bite model. That said, it's also tragic to see people advocating for unsubstantiated beliefs and building their faith around them, a wholly unreliable pathway to truth and knowledge. 2 points to bring out from that. The first is about the bite model. For those who aren't aware, the bite model is a model, I forget the person that invented it, but it's a model that's designed to identify the different high control methods that a group uses. So BITE, behavior, information, thought, and what's the E? Sorry, DannyBoy. It's emotions. Emotional control.
Emotional control. Yeah.
So
it was
yeah.
Stephen Hassan.
Yeah. So if a group utilizes all behavior, information, thought, emotion control, it's a pretty good indicator that it's following all the methods of a cult, and that's what the Jehovah's Witnesses in spades follow that. And the second part.
Sorry, I don't mean to interject or talk over you.
That's right.
I just wanted to say as well, we're defining cult as high control group, right? So there's plenty of different definitions, but Stephen Hassan has done a really good job of bringing that home. That this is what we're specifically talking about is high control groups, and the damage that causes to people. Cult has meant various different things over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
100%. And we're trying to cover both here at Escape to Faith. We're trying to cover groups that both are high control groups and use the bite model, and we also want to cover groups that are cults by definition of being biblical cults. So they have unorthodox or very outside of the norm beliefs that actually contradict Orthodox Christianity. The second part there where it says, that said, it's also tragic to see people advocating for unsubstantiated beliefs and building their lives around faith, a wholly unreliable pathway to truth and knowledge. I'm sure you have plenty of things to say about this, Danny Boy. I'll quickly give my 2 cents. The part there where it says it's tragic to see people advocating for unsubstantiated beliefs. The unfortunate thing about the world that we live in is that everything is an unsubstantiated belief. The reality of being in a world in which we can't see the transcendent or understand the transcendent is that we either believe that the uncaused cause was a material thing that resulted in consciousness, or it was consciousness or transcendent consciousness that developed into materialism, or created materialism more accurately. Either way, we're going into unsubstantiated beliefs and building our lives around a specific faith. The difference is that a faith in a deity or a consciousness that created all things has been the path default for all of history. In fact, time speaking, it's basically 5 minutes old to base an entire theology around the assertion that God does not exist, whereas it has been a constant across history that people always default to God or a consciousness, a creating consciousness existing before all things. The belief in God is simply that consciousness, God, the person that is before all things, he not only created all things, but then came into the Logos, the existence that we have here, and he died on our behalf. It is a very powerful thing. And it says there at the end, a wholly unreliable pathway to truth and knowledge. Au contraire, I would actually say that Christianity and the foundation that there are laws that uphold the universe that we live in has actually been the pathway to truth and knowledge, and the outstanding way through history that has dictated our technological advancements. Christians developed the scientific world. That is an undeniable fact, historically speaking. It has been complemented on top of by other cultures and other groups after that, but the major gratitude that can be given to the technological revolution has been from the baseline of Christianity and the Christian nations that we live in. Danny Boy, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you've touched most of the points that I would have made there. I don't want to go on some sort of lengthy exposition over one sentence comment, but I would just say probably it depends what you mean by substantiated. What exactly is your criteria for a substantiated belief or truth or fact? And I think that the difficulty of having these sorts of discussions with people is we want to really boil down exactly what we're saying, exactly what we consider to be facts, and all of that sort of thing. And those sorts of discussions can get really difficult if you're coming from a priori presuppositional position that only scientific truth is truth. Then we're going to have a real difficulty even working through that on a philosophical level, because the goalpost is just going to continually shift. So yeah, I mean, you've touched on all the points really. It just depends what he means by substantiated or unsubstantiated.
Yeah, it's more philosophically layered than we would like to touch on in most conversations. The next one is a bit more theologically focused. So from user-XO2 and a few more letters and numbers. One point at a time. The first one was, is Jesus Christ a person of the Triune God? The answer is nope. It is clearly stated over and over through Scripture. For example, in John 20:17, we read Jesus Christ, the Father is his God. The Trinity doctrine certainly does not explain God this way. Would you like to take that one first up?
Yeah, I mean, it, there's so many different ways to come at that. What? Oh man.
I'll quickly read that scripture while you're pondering. So John 20:17 says, Jesus said to her, do not cling to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father, but go to my brothers and say to them, I am ascending to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. So that's a scripture that was quoted.
Yeah. I know. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking about this from the first part of the first point that he made. Is God a triune God? And then he just says no, and then tries to reassert it another way. I just don't. I don't know what exactly he thinks the Trinity is, or that the doctrine of the Trinity is. I mean, I guess the question is who. Yeah, how do you even approach that? As far as the issue of Jesus having a God, that's not a contradictory point to the doctrine of the Trinity. So it just really it really depends what he means.
Mm. Absolutely, because we know that in other scriptures, I can't quote it offhand, but we know that the Father himself calls the Son God on multiple occasions too. So they both
Well,
refer to each other as God.
very to the point, Jeremiah 32:27, where it says, "I am Yahweh, the God of all mankind." Are we believing that Jesus is the Word made flesh, or is he is he
Mm.
actually? The ESV actually renders this, "Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh." So, did the Word become flesh? And if the Word did become flesh, then yes, Yahweh is his God. That's a non-controversial point. It doesn't debunk the point of the doctrine of the Trinity whatsoever. To that point as well, it's not as though Trinitarians or the Church have just skipped these scriptures. Um, the assertion that God is not a Trinity, uh, it's a difficult one to really take seriously.
Mm.
It's what did Unitarian groups just pop up in the last 200 years with suddenly all of these scriptures
Mm.
that have never been seen before? Like, oh no,
Yeah.
you got us. How does that work? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree completely. It's like they believe that they've just come up with these arguments out of nowhere, and it's like, oh, I finally got the silver bullet that if all through history, if only these other people had this argument, if I'd been here during their time, maybe they could have beaten this argument with my help. These scriptures existed long before we existed, and it's not like they're coming up with arguments that are unique.
Yeah, I mean, what did the Council of Hippo? How did they come up with? I mean, you're the resident expert on church history, so what did the Council of Hippo say? What was
So
the
the
Nicene Creed was?
the Council of Nicaea was in 325, and that's where they asserted the interdoctrine, the Trinity, and the doctrine as we understand it, and that was in response to Arius. And
Right.
393 was the Council of Hippo, and that was the canonization of the New Testament scripture, and they canonized New Testament scripture in line with the assertions of the Nicene Creed. In fact, there are certain scriptures like Revelation, certain books of the Bible that were only included due to the fact that they complemented and added upon the assertions of the Nicene Creed and the Trinitarian nature of God through their writings in a way that had not been expounded upon in other writings.
Right. So that the compilation of scripture is it's stated to be upholding this doctrine. So it should be there. That was the point, right?
Mm.
So if it were the case that these scriptures undermined the doctrine of the Trinity, then they wouldn't have been included.
Yeah, and it's also the case that people oftentimes look at it and go, well, you can't prove the Trinity from the Bible. And in fact, it's the other way around. The Bible itself was canonized on the assertions of the Trinity. They had to prove that the scriptures themselves lined up with the assertions of the Trinity in order to be included and canonized. So when people say that they go, oh, you have to prove the Trinity to my liking, to my desires, according to Scripture. If they were back in that day, they would simply say the opposite. They would say, no, you have to prove your Scripture from the Trinity, which is quite ironic.
Right. I guess the counter to that would be miraculous preservation, right?
Mm.
So someone would say, well, it didn't really matter what the council said because these scriptures were always, these books were always going to be included in a closed canon of the scripture because God wouldn't have allowed it to be any other way. So that's true. I do agree with that, but I just also agree with the underlying assertion that what the council's stated goal was to achieve was also achieved. Yeah.
And the irony of that point too, it's a good and a fair point. The fact that God would not have allowed the Scripture to be canonized wrong. One could say the same comment about the council that asserted the Trinity. If God was not to allow His Scripture to be corrupted in such a way, He also would not allow His church to be so integrally corrupted to the point where it actually dictates Scripture according to that criteria. So that same assertion that God would protect what is His has to be fairly given to both.
Yeah, yeah. I think. I mean, this is where it would be useful to have somebody come in with a rebuttal point there. I think the assertion would be something like, well, the church was corrupted, but that doesn't mean that that God's Spirit was unable to move people to do something contrary to what they wanted to happen. I mean, the problem is, well, I say the problem. There are plenty of problems that arise out of these sorts of objections, but I just not having anybody here to object to it. Again, I don't want to go off on lengthy expositions of things that maybe not even someone's point.
That's fair.
I don't want to straw man anyone here.
100%. Well, in the topic of not having you go on a tangent, let's read one from Mr. DC3.